computer. Hi, I'm Renee Hobbs. Welcome to COM 416. I'm here with the amazing students at the University of Rhode Island's Harrington School of Communication Media. Today's date is Tuesday, March 19th, and we are back from spring break for COM 416. So let me just share my screen with you, and we'll kind of do a little kind of overview of what we're going to try to accomplish in just 60 quick minutes. Our topic this week is called News as Propaganda. And I guess probably now is the best time for me to explain that the course is now, after spring break, going to take a shift to a much darker place. In a way, I guess, we needed the first half of the semester to sort of get an understanding of this slippery concept of propaganda, because now almost everything you thought you might have learned in the last 6 weeks is going to get called into question in the next 6 weeks. Just saying, you've got to strap in, right? Buckle up, because the next 6 weeks takes us in a much darker and more complex. We're going to be opening up some really interesting paradoxes about what is propaganda. Just as we finally started to figure it out, we're going to mess with you. And you guys have already figured that out. I can see as I look at the work that you did in preparing for tonight's class, you are aware of the shift that's occurred already. So, so let's just talk a little bit about what we can do tonight. So this topic, one of my favorite, but also most messy, complicated topics, takes on the theme of news as propaganda, right? And this week we confronted the famous propaganda model developed by Noam Chomsky and Edward Herman in 1987 or 88 or 89. And we're going to be asking some questions about whether that propaganda model still applies today. So we're going to do a little bit of critique of the propaganda model, and we're going to do a little defense of the propaganda model. We're going to engage in a discussion activity where we discuss the legacy of the propaganda model by looking at two videos. Check it out. One about the Trump, Fox, and Friends feedback loop, right? I guess Trump watches Fox and Friends, and Fox and Friends watches Trump, so that's what a feedback loop is. And then another piece by the Washington Post called The Revolving Door Between Fox News and the Trump administration, which is about the hiring patterns that have been happening there. So we'll have some fun talking about those two short video activities. But first, I thought it was probably a useful thing to review the midterm examination concepts and feedback. I think you all have perhaps found the feedback that I left for you at the Pathright website, and I hope that's true. Let me just see if I can view this as a learner. Oh, I know what's going on. Hold on here. Because I wanted to kind of show you what the data looks like, and talk with you a little bit about okay, there's the midterm exam. Now where's my summary of results and sample answers? Why is that not opening up? Oh, damn. Hold on just a second here. I just looked at this and it was working fine, and now it's not. What's up with this? So some of you are probably thrilled about your grades in the midterm exam. Some of you are probably disappointed. Where did that go? Hold on here. I'm just completely flummoxed by, oh, what happened there? All right. Well, when I can get that page to work, which I'll try to do that right after this class, there we go. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can actually see that right now? Can you see that screen? Yeah, cool. So here's a summary of the grades for the midterm examination. You guys know that for many years I taught at Temple University and before that at Babson College. And you probably already figured out from Leap 1 that I'm a tough grader. In this case, the grades for the midterm were B minus. So you can see here from the chart that 6 students got a B minus and 5 students got a B and 3 students got an A minus and 3 students got a C minus and 1 student got a B plus, 2 students got a C plus, 2 students got an A, 2 students got a C. So that's about right in terms of a grade distribution of about a B minus. You know that when I sent you feedback, I basically responded to each of the 10 questions that are on the quiz. So you can kind of take a look and get some feedback about your performance on the individual items. But I thought it would be useful for you guys to take a look at some sample answers, because in some way, as you think about having to take another exam like this when you take a final exam, it's really a good idea to see what good looks like. And I, out of respect for the students in the room, I didn't put anybody's names attached to these, but as I was reviewing, these were some of the greatest answers that I found, and I would suggest that rereading these student answers would give you a lot of confidence in feeling like you've got the background knowledge for the quiz. In general, the single most common error that I found was a simple one, and it always is, you know. The most common error that I found in the midterm exams was actually students jumping in to answer a question that they hadn't actually really read, right? So plenty of you did some really interesting writing. You just didn't answer the question. One of the clearest examples of that was the question you all love to answer, the last question, which asked you to identify the 6 disinformation tactics. Remember, discredit, trolling, emotion, impersonation, and so forth. You guys loved writing about that, and you showed me that you understood those techniques. Many of you had played the bad news game, right? And so you had experienced some of these techniques and gave some great examples. But the question asked you to explain why those techniques increase the likelihood that information would be shared or spread virally. And many of you described the technique, but never explained what was it about that technique that would make it be shareable. So in several cases, you wrote great stuff. It just didn't align with the question. And so that's the strategy to keep in mind for the final exam. Read the question carefully. And since you have 48 hours, you can really read the question carefully and think about it, right? So I'm pretty confident that you're going to do great for your final exam. It was a pleasure to read your good writing under pressure, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much. I do feel pretty confident that you guys are managing to do some significant learning in this class. Okay, so second thing that I want to do, and you can see that from my plan for today, is I want to talk a little bit about the next upcoming assignment, which is which is Leap 2. Okay, Leap 2, collaborate and create. It's due very shortly, right? First things first, not everybody in this room has signed up for a partner, so I manually teamed you up, right? So if your name is in yellow there, you hadn't yet found your partner. So I assigned you I assigned you a partner because the deadline is getting near, and you can't really afford to wait too much. Oh, you guys cannot see that, I bet, right? Can you see that? No, you can't. Okay, hold on. I see that if I open it up in a new window, it's a bad thing. So I'll just open it up normally. Hold on here. View it as a learner. There we go. This, I think, give me a thumbs up if you can see this now. There, I was looking at this, but you weren't seeing it. So you can see that I identified the 8 students in the class who hadn't yet found a partner, and I teamed you up. So you've got the email, you've got the Twitter, you've got the path right. Now you're going to be really in full getting started. I wanted to talk a little bit. You guys are comparing and contrasting. That means you're only selecting 2 examples of propaganda from 2 different time periods or from 2 different cultures. But what I wanted to do was talk a little bit about this phase called the research phase. And I thought it would be a great idea for me to introduce to you how Renee's magical approach to academic research can change your life. I'm just letting that sink in a little bit, you guys, because I'm going to show you my magical technique for academic research that's going to change your life. Okay, and I'm not really kidding about this. In the next 6 minutes, I'm going to demonstrate a technique that works really well for academic research and has been absolutely essential to me in my own scholarly work. Having authored 8 books and 150 journal articles, I know a lot about research. So watch and learn. 7 minutes, right? 7 minutes. Okay. First of all, we start with the topic of interest. When I was browsing on the Mind Over Media website, which I do every single day, right, I found a really interesting new piece of propaganda there, and it quite intrigued me. And let me see if I can show it to you. Come on. Oh, maybe I need to log out. Now it's so heavy. Okay, there we go. Aha. Oh yeah, look at this. Conservative students feel attacked, right? There's a piece of propaganda, and it says, it's from Fox Nation, it says, research shows less than half of conservative students feel safe on college campuses. That is absolutely fascinating. I actually kind of think that's kind of beneficial propaganda, because I think anybody who doesn't feel safe that's a problem. The person who uploaded it said, this video features survey research that shows that conservative students do not share their political views because of fear of retribution from their peers and teachers. Students are closeted because they don't feel comfortable expressing themselves, even with friends. The reporter says an overwhelming majority of, my internet connection is unstable. The overwhelming majority of faculty are liberal, which can be intimidating to conservative students. This is absolutely fascinating. Has anyone commented on this? Nobody has commented on this yet. But notice, people react in different ways to this kind of propaganda, right? Some see it beneficial, like I did, but other people think it might be harmful. So I'm going to compare 2 pieces of propaganda from different time periods on this topic of conservative students and how conservative students feel on campus. Because truthfully, you know, I've been teaching in higher education for 30 years. This is an issue that we talked about in the 90s, right? So I'm going to go find some news propaganda from the 90s and compare it to this most recent version, right? And right away, I'm going to my favorite resource, Google Scholar. Google Scholar. It rocks my world. This is a great place to start. Don't start in the open Google. Start at Google Scholar. And I'm just going to type in conservative students. Conservative students, right? Whoa, that is totally not good. Okay. So I'm going to see if I can narrow it by just searching since 2015. And it's got conservative students in study abroad programs. Maybe I need to type in Fox. Aha. Conservative students' attitudes toward concealing weapons. Politically conservative pre-service teachers and the spiral of silence. Implications for teacher education. We talked about the spiral of silence early on in the semester, right? That idea that your perceptions of public opinion might shape your willingness to share political ideas. But none of these are really screaming at me that they seem appropriate. So I'm just going to put conservative students in quotes. And notice I get different results. Isn't that interesting? And I get one that looks really interesting: teachers, students, and ideological bias in the college classroom. And it's from a journal called Communication Education. Ah, whoa, that sounds cool. Okay, and so then I'm going to look at it a little bit. It's in a special issue called Wicked Problems: Freedom of Speech at Colleges and Universities. This is just kind of the topic that I am interested in. Heated battles over free speech have erupted on college campuses, blah, 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 blah. But when I hit get access, right, it's like, it's going to want me to spend $43. That's so ridiculous, because I don't need to spend any money at all. I can just hit Control-C, copy the title, and head over to the URI library. Oh yeah, I'm at the URI library, and I just type in that article title, and boom, full text available, communication education. Now I got to take a couple clicks. There's click 1, there's click 2. But now, voila, I can download that PDF with one click. And now I'm going to read, right? So here's my recommendation for you. You have to do some additional reading and gather knowledge about your topic, or your academic essay is going to be junk, right? But you really don't need a gigantic quantity of articles if you choose well. In general, a book chapter, a journal article are going to give you a whole lot of information. And in general, if you have 3 great sources and you read these carefully and you annotate them, what you're going to find is that in these articles, especially if they're written after 2015, did you notice how I limited my search? After 2015, these are recent articles that you can use the reference list, right? In the, you can use the reference list in the article to find additional information that is useful to you, right? So I'm going to go back to my Google source. You remember how I did that, right? I typed in scholar.google.com. I typed in conservative students, quotation mark, Fox, right? And I'm looking for something else. Since 2015. So in some way, The experience of, whoa, look at this one. Kill all the normies. Online culture wars from 4chan and Tumblr to Trump and the alt-right. That might be useful to me, but you know what? I think my problem is I need to get drilled down onto Fox News, right? Fox News is what I need to focus on. That's when I see about the pre-service teachers. That's when I, interesting article, No News is Good News, satirical news videos in the information literacy classroom. You know I'm going to read that, right? But it turns out that it doesn't take much to find information that's going to help me build my argument about looking at how conservative students are depicted in Fox News from 2 different time periods, right? 3 great sources that you trace back to find 3 great sources that those authors were influenced. It's not about quantity, it's about quality. And you can do a beautiful, your job is to write an 8 to 12 page academic paper. You can do a beautiful 8 to 12 page paper with 6 sources. 3 you found the way I just modeled for you, and 3 you find some other way. What questions do you have about LEAP 2 now that we're really talking about it, and now that it's due, coming up real soon? What questions do you have about LEAP 2?
So for the 2 different time periods, does it have to be just 2 different years, or can it be like just like 2 separate years, and then do we have to find 3 sources for each year that we're choosing?
Nope. So I'm back here. 2 different time periods or 2 different cultures. So if I pick 2 different time periods like 2018 and 2015, chances are so comparison contrast really wants the pieces to be like a little bit similar and a little bit different, right? So if I pick the time period too close, I'm really not going to be able to say anything that's all that like startling. So if you choose propaganda from 2 different time periods, then you should keep those time periods spread out, right? Like maybe from 2000 and 2018, or from the 1990s to the 2010s. If you choose 2 different cultures, right, then you're going to pick propaganda from 2 different countries, right? So you might look at a the German conservative students. That's actually a really interesting idea. I hadn't thought about that, but you know, the rise of the AfD, the German conservative students are, especially with what we saw about Look Who's Back, right? You know, they're kind of leaning toward the more authoritarian leadership. So that's a good question. Pick something to create a meaningful comparison contrast. Otherwise, you're not going to learn. So I'm thinking you can use six sources for the whole paper. Because remember, the academic sources you use are building your background knowledge, providing you the context you need to interpret these messages. That's really what your academic research is for. It's building your background knowledge so you can write with some expertise. So Jessica's question was a good one. Who's got another question about LEAP 2? Yeah.
For the infographic, like, can you do that in video format, or does it have to be through the program that you...
Great question. So the infographic is really a visual text that is static, right? So for this project, you can't, well, I mean, you could do this as a video. If you did it as an animation, I might count that, but I'm kind of expecting that it's going to be in the form of an infographic that's basically a web tool. So here I am at PictoChart, pictochart.com, and it gives me free templates that are really easy to use. And when I pick a template, create your own infographic, right? I can easily modify everything. I just type in the new content, right? I can add photos. I can create new visuals. The key thing to remember about infographics, and it teaches me, right? It teaches me, I can upload my own images. You see, by clicking the plus, I can upload my own images from the computer, or I can use the ones they gave me. The key thing to remember is that an infographic is not an accumulation of data. It's a representation of information in graphic format, designed to make the data or the information easily understandable at a glance. So since the format of my paper is comparison contrast, I might want to set up my infographic as a comparison contrast, right? But in any case, I really have to figure out how to simplify. The worst thing you can do is simply cut and paste paragraphs from your paper into your infographic. Then you will fail, right? That's not the way you do it. So your job is, how do you tell the story of your academic paper using headlines, data, images, and graphic elegance? So that's the fun, but also the challenge of infographics. I am so glad you asked that question. Who's got a question?
Follow up to that?
Yeah.
It's obvious that from that description that we should write our paper first.
Not necessarily, Pam, although that could work.
Or at least outline it so we know what the key ideas are.
You got to know what the key ideas are. Yep. So knowing what the key ideas are is going to be really important. Sometimes that involves writing. Sometimes that involves drawing or making an outline. My students have told me that sometimes the design of the infographic actually, as they're creating, it spurs their thinking about what are the main ideas, right? That's what I write about in my book, Create to Learn. It turns out that sometimes playing with a tool like the infographic maker gets you thinking, well, what are the real ideas you want to write about in your academic essay? And so some people do really well figuring that out in visual form with the infographic and then going back and writing the academic essay. So, but either strategy could work for you. So I'm glad you brought that up, Pam.
And did somebody ask if we can use some of the readings from the course?
Yes. But nobody asked that question, but that's a great question. I'm showing my enthusiasm for that idea. I like that a lot. Yes, use what you've learned. Use the stuff you've already read. It's a brilliant idea. Okay, what other questions do you have about Leap 2? Just think you guys are asking on behalf of all those students who are not able to join us tonight. So they need you to ask questions, right? Okay, so you're feeling comfortable about that, right? Okay, so let's turn to our next activity. Let's see here. Where is the next activity? It's at Propaganda. It's at Propaganda 2019. Oh yeah. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna try to reflect a little bit on the 5 filters of propaganda that Noam Chomsky told us about. And we're going to watch 2 different videos to address this. Before I do that though, let me remind you about those 5 filters, because this work isn't due till Friday, and maybe not everybody on this call is all together now. So just to review, wow. Strange that, yeah, there we go. Strange that it's happening the way it is. So what are those 5 filters, right? Okay, so Noam Chomsky's model has 5. He says news is a form of propaganda. And that really is a radical idea compared to everything we learned about before the break. He says news is propaganda because of 5 filters that make it propaganda. First, centralized ownership. Second, funding from advertising. Third, reliance on establishment sources. Fourth, flack. That is the negative feedback that you get when uncomfortable truths challenge the establishment. And 5, creation of enemies, right? So you guys in your, after viewing and watching the 2 videos, you guys have, many of you have already started to say some really interesting things. So I feel like we can take those 5 filters now and we can divide into 2 teams. Here's how I'd like to do it. Let's see. How about, let me just stop sharing for a second. So how about if Tom, Olivia, and Pam, how about if you guys be team 1 and you're going to watch that first video. It's the video that's entitled, it's the Vox video entitled The Trump Fox and Friends Feedback Loop. And then Renee, Anthony, and Jessica, we will be team 2. Okay, so the first thing that has to happen is we have to mute our microphones and mute our microphones, and we have to watch the 3 or 4 minute video. And you're thinking as you're watching this video, what am I learning? And how does this relate to the 5 filters of the propaganda model, right? Then we're going to break into 2 teams, and each team will discuss a little bit. We'll see if we can really understand the connection between the 5 filters of propaganda and the short video that you watched. And then we'll come back together as a whole group and talk things over and see what we learn by comparing and contrasting. Yeah. Anthony, turn your microphone on.
Oh, where's the video again?
Aha, good show. So I'm going to share my screen with you. And you're going to find the video here. I'm going to take the, I'm going to copy the URL. This is our home page of our class, COM416 Propaganda, propaganda.2019.com. And I guess I'll put it also in the chat room. How's that? How about if I put it in the chat room? Right, so here's the chat. If you open up the chat bar, the URL is there. Okay, so team 1, Tom, Olivia, and Pam, you watch the Vox video.
Together or alone?
You guys got to watch it alone.
Okay.
Got to watch it alone. That means you're going to turn off your microphone.
Yeah.
Mute your microphone while you watch, and then I'll pop you into team 1's group and teams 2 group. Renee, Anthony, and Jessica, we're going to watch team video number 2, which is the Washington Post video. And then we're going to come back in 5 minutes when we're done watching. You'll get an invitation that says join group 1 or join group 2. You'll join that, and then you'll talk over. Remember, you have to summarize the video and analyze the video. So now we're going to do some real work. Give me a thumbs up if you know what we're doing now. Yeah, it should be fun. Okay, cool. Mute your microphone and let's watch. Okay, you guys should be getting an invitation to a breakout room now. So you can join that breakout room. We're going to take about 5 or 6 minutes to talk over those messages. Hey, here you are.
Oh, she's muted.
Oops, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, good show. Okay, so we got to watch the Washington Post piece. What did you notice about that piece? What did you learn?
Well, like,
you can go.
I noticed that like Trump was kind of surrounding himself with like yes men, like in the sense that he like was getting all these people from Fox, all these people that would support him, all these people that would say things about him that were like in line with his beliefs. Just like kind of stuff like that.
Yeah, and he would like put down other news networks and support Fox News, like publicly.
We definitely heard insulting of the other news networks. What do you remember about that?
Well, he mentioned CNN, WNBC.
There was one of the people he hired saying it's all the media elite telling us what to think, right? So there was definitely a kind of us versus them, right? Around Fox versus the rest of the media.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I noticed that. Fox versus the rest of the media. And Anthony's observation about the idea that he surrounds himself with yes men is really interesting. We didn't really, what we learned were that these people used to work at Fox and now they work for the administration. But I didn't notice that the voiceover offered much of an opinion about that.
Yeah, I feel like the narrator was pretty unbiased about what was being said. Like she was just saying the points, like this and this happened.
This guy moved here. This one used to be here and now is here. There could have been a commentary like it's a revolving door between Fox and the White House, but there wasn't much opinion that the narrator shared.
I feel like there was no opinion, but like what they were saying kind of gave like the clips that they had of with the quotations of the people, it was like, wow, these people are talking about like they're defending the president essentially.
Yeah.
So I feel like while the reporter wasn't saying anything that was inherently anti-Trump, they were saying pro-Trump stuff to just kind of prove the point. Like these people are on Fox. Trump said these negative things about these other networks, and then Trump kind of took these people up that were just like, they're gonna agree with me, they're conservatives, blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
he definitely took people under his wing that were supporting him.
Yeah, I think this is a key point. The clips were chosen to show us how loyal these people were to the Trump agenda, right? And so those clips were really carefully chosen to show us certain aspects. Like we heard, didn't we hear something about anti-immigration or anti-multiculturalism? So we heard certain ideas that are part of the Trump platform, right? Multiculturalism is bad, right? Coal is good, right? So the narrator didn't voice the opinions, but the choice of the clip revealed the opinions of the spokespeople are aligned with the Trump agenda. Okay, so now we definitely understand the piece really well. How does that relate to the 5 filters of propaganda? Centralized ownership, advertising, establishment sources, flack, or enemies?
I mean, like definitely with establishment sources, you know, Trump is more willing to do interviews with Fox, which is pro-Trump. With with centralized ownership, I think you said. There's like even in my com theory class today, they said 90% of media in the United States is controlled by this company. So like, with like the enemy, like the war on terror, or
Yeah.
like just things like that, where you can be like, oh, the ISIS, we have to defeat ISIS and rile everyone up, even though ISIS has been an issue really for years, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So Fox is owned by News Corporation, which is owned by Rupert Murdoch, right? And so he is one of the largest and most, he also owns the Wall Street Journal, right? One of the most powerful media companies in the world. The issue of enemies is really interesting. You point out about the ISIS as the enemy. In this case, he also made, the clip made mainstream media as the enemy, right? But of all those 5 filters, what's really kind of missing, strangely, is establishment sources. You know, none of the people Trump hired are the establishment, right? In the sense of the experts from military, government, diplomacy. They're all media people, not government people, right? And so that actually is really interesting because, you know, the propaganda model says propaganda when it comes in the news media is going to rely on establishment sources. Maybe Fox News has become an establishment source. All right, that's cool. All right, we're going to go back to the main group and see if you guys, do you think you can represent our little ahas that we got to people who haven't seen that video?
Sure.
You can. I know you can do it. Okay, cool. All right, here we go. Return to main session. All right, there we go. There's something so amazing to me about these small breakout rooms in Zoom. I just really love them. I feel like it's the best feature of the Zoom. Of course, it's nice to have a small class too, but it's even cooler to have like a small conversation. Okay, so I see Tom is back. And Tom, where are your buddies?
They're coming.
They're coming.
I don't know.
There they
I saw the thing. I clicked on it.
That's a normal thing to do. Okay, so let's see if we can do a comparison contrast. First, we'll hear from team 1. You guys are going to summarize and analyze. Then we'll hear from team 2. We're going to summarize and analyze. And as we're listening, we're going to see if we can figure out what are the similarities and what are the differences. All right, team 1, go for it.
Go ahead, Tom or Olivia.
Okay.
In your hands.
So you want to go, Olivia?
Yeah, I'll go. So this video was about kind of Trump's association with Fox and Friends, which is like an entertainment, like a daytime television thing. And it showed, provided information about how he's correlated and greatly influenced with this show that was deemed in this video one of the stupidest shows on television. And I think the purpose of it was meant to speak negatively towards Trump and the information he provides his viewers because it's from Fox and Friends.
Okay. And how does that relate to the propaganda model, the 5 filters of the propaganda model? What's the connection between the Fox or the Vox video that you watched and the propaganda model? Any connections there that you could notice?
I mean, I think it like aids with like the filtration of it, like how the information from media is filtered. Media is just one filter, and then it's like when it's transferred from media to like another form of media, which is like Donald Trump social media, that's just like another filter. Because it goes from like, I think it's like kind of a role reversal, because usually it's like information from the government becomes pop culture, but now this is saying like information from pop culture, which is Fox and Friends, is now becoming like, is now fueling government information. And I think that's kind of,
yeah, that's a big idea.
It's the media
I feel like
thing.
Yeah.
Only it's a new media elite.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay, you're blowing my mind there. All right, now we're going to hear from Team 2. Team 2, what was your video about?
Go, Jessica.
So it was about how Fox and how like Trump hires people for his administration who are from Fox News, and basically it's because they support his ideas and they're pro-Trump and conservative, and Trump like publicly says how he's like for Fox and against all the other news networks like CNN and NBC News and WNBC, and he just like is voicing how he feels and like takes in the people who will support him. But then the narrator of the video didn't really state her opinion, but the clips that she showed were very pro-Trump, but her like voiceover was very like unbiased.
Cool. And so how did that second video, how did that relate to the 5 filters of the propaganda model?
Definitely like kind of the idea of like centralized ownership, where Fox News was kind of one of these 6 big media outlets. It's Fox, CNN, MSNBC. And then when Trump kind of is like, CNN's trash, MSNBC is trash, you know, you're conservative. Now what media do you look to? You have maybe 2/3 of the options now where you think you can get like actual news. So like there's kind of like more of a monopolistic approach on certain types of media. And then like, you know, with the enemy aspect, like constantly talking on the war on terror, constantly talking about like ISIS and other aspects like that, where ISIS isn't really a problem. You know, recently they've kind of been beat back, but like still ISIS is this big thing. We have to defeat ISIS. We have to take ISIS out of like Syria. What else did we do? I forget what else we talked about.
Actually, I think you did a really great job. You got the ownership, you got the enemies, and you got the establishment media angle. So really, this second half of the course is where we're going to plunge into a much more uncharted territory. The first half of the course, we felt pretty confident saying, look, there's a 100-year history of like understanding propaganda, and we now understand it. But now in the second half of the course, we're coming closer to the present day, closer to what's happening around us, and we don't understand it yet, right? And so the interesting phenomenon of trying to make sense of the present kind of forces us to go back to things we thought we knew to see if we can understand them. And so to do that, I just want to share with you another great technique that I use as part of my research strategy that I suggest you guys explore and make this part of your research strategy too. I started thinking after I watched those 2 videos, like, you know, the propaganda model, it's so old, from the 80s. Does it make sense now in relation to the rise of Fox News as a form of state TV, you know, where the president and Fox are like they're like, you know, they're both using each other, right, in a way. And I want to illustrate for you something I call the power of topic sentences. You know, I'm a reader, I read a lot, but I don't always read everything. I sometimes read really strategically. So I found this really interesting article at the Monthly Review, which is a socialist magazine. Oh my God. And it was written by Edward Herman, and he's the guy who co-authored with Chomsky the propaganda model, and he just recently died, right? Look at that. He died at 92 years old last year, right? 2 years ago, right? And he's an economist at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. That's a pretty important place. And I'm just not really even reading, okay? I'm just not reading because all that is in italics. That's not the real thing. So I'm just skipping over that, right? And this is basically a reflection on the manufacturing consent book, right? And watch how fascinating it is to try this technique. Okay, I'm just going to read the first sentence of the paragraph. Okay, the propaganda model was and is in distinct contrast to the prevailing mainstream explanations, both liberal and conservative, of media behavior and performance. There's a distinct difference between the political implications of the propaganda model and mainstream scholarship. In this article, I will describe the propaganda model, address some of the criticism it's been leveled against it, and discuss how the model holds up a decade after its publication. What is the propaganda model and how does it work? And then it describes those 5 factors. These factors are linked together, reflecting the power of business and government, like blah, 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 to exert power over the flow of information. Next paragraph. Propaganda campaigns can occur only when consistent with the interests of those controlling and managing the filters. Whoa. The fit of this dichotomization to corporate interests and anti-communist ideology is obvious. I'm skipping that one. We never claimed that the propaganda model explains everything, or that it shows media omnipotence and complete effectiveness in manufacturing consent. So the propaganda model doesn't explain everything. Although it was well received, some people thought it was bad, it was pessimistic, and the implication of hopeless odds to be overcome. Okay, here are the critiques from the mainstream liberal and academic left. Many liberals and academics did not like the propaganda model. Many of their critiques barely concealed anger, and most of the time they dismissed the propaganda model with a few superficial cliches. Some people even said the propaganda model was a conspiracy theory. They also said it failed to take account of media professionalism and objectivity. But professionalism and objectivity rules are fuzzy, flexible, and superficial, right? Okay, so you get the concept. They go through all the critiques, and then, oh, by the way, it's still relevant today. Why? The changes in the economy, communication industries, and politics have made the propaganda model more relevant. Some people say it's the internet and the communication technologies that are making media more democratic, but actually the second sentence. A reduction in the resources devoted to journalism means that those who subsidize the media gain greater leverage. And it goes on and on and on. What I'm really illustrating is that a skim reading can work for you as a way to figure out whether or not a source is going to be worth a more careful reading. And in this case, I've been reflecting a lot on the propaganda model because it helps to make sense of some things that are harder to understand. When I start thinking about news as propaganda, I've got to look at the role of sources. I've got to think about the advertising supported model. That's what we learned before the break, right? So let me share with you a little bit about, just in the 2 minutes I have left, what I want you to do for next week, because that's kind of the most important thing, right? Our topic next week, it's amazing. Oh my God. Computational propaganda. Computational propaganda. Our focus question is, what role do bots and trolls play in the dissemination of propaganda? First thing I want you to do is watch a couple of really interesting videos about what is computational propaganda. And after you watch these, they're like 2-minute videos. I want you to tweet 2 messages that comment on an idea that you encountered in this video, but make sure that you use the COM416 hashtag, and I'll give you bonus points if you make skillful use of images, hyperlinks, tagging, and other Twitter users. Okay, that'll be fun. Second thing is, I want you to choose 2 of these articles to read. They're all short magazine pieces. Why the Russian influence campaign is so hard to understand. How Russian trolls used meme warfare to divide America. And Tinder nightmares, the promise and peril of political bots. So what you're going to do is participate in a Burkean parlor where you share your thoughts about what you're reading using a collaborative PowerPoint deck. You're going to select 2 powerful quotes and use this format to address them. I suggest that you watch this short video so you understand what the Burkean parlor is. You're going to choose a powerful quote, and I gave a model. Identify the source, right? Pick a quote from the article that was meaningful to you, and then react to it and interpret it in your own words. This is essentially the foundation of academic writing. It's called They Say, I Say. You pretend you're in a conversation, you acknowledge what other people have said, and then you make your own point, right? So I want you to do that about this topic of Russian propaganda and the trolls and bots that might have influenced our election. Then you're going to come back next Tuesday and participate in the class. And of course, next Friday, your LEAP 2 is due. If you guys have any questions, the best way to reach me, as you know, is on Twitter. I really am grateful to Jess and Anthony and Olivia and Tom and Pam for joining tonight's class, because in a way, we got to model some of the practices of critically analyzing the new forms of propaganda, like journalism. And next week, Russian memes. So have fun with the topic. Have fun with your LEAP 2, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday. All right. Good night.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely. Ask a question.
I tried to DM you on Twitter and it wouldn't let me. It said like I don't have the capability to message you.
Oh, so you can't direct message me unless I'm following you. So, but you can create a regular tweet. And if you use my name at Renee Hobbs in the beginning, then only me and the people who also follow you and follow me will see it. So it'll be kind of private. If you start a tweet with my name.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. If you start
cool.
with my name, nobody else will see it, just me and whoever else is following both you and me. So that's the best way to do it. Cool. All right, you guys, have fun. If you have any other questions, I'll be here. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Right.